Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. We have no public comment, is that correct? And then approval of minutes from last month.
I move that we approve both the regular board meeting and work session on October 8th. August.
Was not.
I was looking at it right there and it still said October. So yes, August 8th.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Juana, is she going to be online or? All right,
I am here.
great, you're up.
Okay. This is the July 31st General Fund Revenue and Expenditure Report. Not a whole lot of action yet going on. We did receive a large state timber payment. The good thing about it coming in this early is it allows us enough time to inform ODE so that they can adjust our payments starting the second half of the year rather than getting hit with it next year. So I'll inform them of that at the time we submit our 24-25 projections. Other than that, we've received 16% of our revenue, which seems a little high for right now, but part of that's because of that timber revenue. And then also in July, the state pays a double state school fund payment because we don't receive one in June. So July is when they do the double on that. And then we have spent 3% of our operating expenditures.
Juana, this is Andrea.
Hi.
There's a large audience here, and can you explain just a little bit more about why the state timber fund is important?
Yeah, so the way the state school fund works, the best way to explain it is if you look at a whole number, that whole number is made up of local revenue, which is property taxes, state timber, and then you get the state school fund. And you only receive a certain amount per your ADMW. And that amount calculates to that one whole number. So if we end up getting more property taxes or more state timber revenue than we originally projected, then they lower the state school fund to keep it at that one number. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Okay.
People are nodding, so thank you very much, Juana.
Yep.
All right, and any other questions before we take action?
Well, since I'm already talking, I move that we approve the general fund revenue and expenditures for July 23 for the 23-24 fiscal year.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. All right, unaudited financial report as of June 30th, 2003.
Yeah, I mentioned in June that I would be sharing with you the unaudited year-end numbers for 22-23. We ended up receiving 104% of our budgeted revenues, and we spent 93% of our operating expenditures. So we underspent our operating expenditures by 7%, basically. With those numbers, we ended up with approximately a 5.8 million ending fund balance. That could change by 100 to 200,000 once all the closing entries are done by the auditors and once our property tax reconciliation comes in. But it should be fairly close to that. Does the board have any questions on that? That does not need action. It's just informative for you.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, moving on to reports. Director of K-12 Programs report.
Okay, I'll be talking to you guys for quite a bit. I have two different topics that I wanted to go over with you. The first one is more just informational because it's 2 years, it's been a law for 2 years now. So the district's already kind of staggered into compliance. But I want to make sure that everybody understands because it's the beginning of the school year. So we'll be back in compliance, which means that we might hear more. The Menstrual Dignity Act, House Bill 3294, it was passed in 2021. And what it is it's a requirement that all schools, every school district K-12 has to provide free menstrual products in the restrooms. You'd think that's a great thing. Well, but it's also K-12 and it's girls and boys restrooms. So it's a very challenging thing. And part of it is it's based on research. There's a 40-page document that goes with it. It's kind of like a guidebook for implementation. Some of the research talks about how the correlation to attendance and just shame and all of these different things that come into play, student success and how it disproportionately impacts students of color, students experiencing disabilities, and students experiencing poverty, if you've heard the term period poverty. The biggest thing that's also challenging for districts is that the law affirms the right to menstrual dignity for transgender, intersex, non-binary, two-spirit by making sure that they're in both female and male restrooms. And that's where we kind of feel more pushback than anything from people. The 4 pillars, I'm not going to read it all to you. Hopefully people were able to kind of review some of the notes. This is just a smidge of the law and the requirements. But the 4 pillars are on privacy, inclusivity, access, and education. So if you scroll down to the second page, Michelle. The second page of this document that I sent you guys kind of talks about the requirements. So the first page was the basis of it and the background. The second page is what our requirements are. Keep going. Yeah. All right, so the first requirement is that we have to have some sort of a dispenser type product in every bathroom. It doesn't have to be every stall of every bathroom, but it has to be somewhere in every bathroom. So in 2021, 2022, what we did was you only had to have 2 per building, and the district had to make their best judgment on where those 2 were. And so what the district did was we put them in the female commons restrooms in the hallways of the elementaries and in the 4 or 5 pod female restrooms. And then at the middle school and high school, we put them in the main girls' locker rooms and then the main public restrooms. So then last year, what we had to do was we had to take it further, and you had to have a dispenser or a dispenser type product in every restroom. Not every stall, just every restroom. So what we've been working to do is put some sort of a menstrual product dispenser, like an actual metal dispenser, in all the female restrooms and all the gender neutral bathrooms and like the health rooms, where it makes the most sense to have something like that. In the male restrooms, in the handicap stall, for privacy, trying to make sure that we're following the requirements, we put up an envelope. And that's one, there's no rules on what the dispenser has to be, except that you have to have one. So we put up this kind of heavy duty envelope and we put 2 products in there. So that's where we're at right now. And that's how we'll start the year as well. So that we'll be in compliance with the dispenser piece. What happened when I did my walkthrough a couple weeks ago is I'd say 7 out of the 10 boys' restrooms were vandalized. So they were ripped off, they were thrown away, you know, not all of them, but the majority of them. So that's something that we know is going to happen. I know that when we put this into play 2 years ago as well, we were super worried about just the vandalism in general, flushing of products down toilets. What's that going to do to our plumbing system? What's going to happen when you come in and they're stuck to the wall, things like that. And we really didn't see that. I mean, for the most part, there was some, but we didn't see that type of vandalism. It was more about just ripping the dispenser off the boys' restroom and throwing it away. So we'll go back to that same situation, except we'll add the rest of the metal free normal dispensers in all the girls' bathrooms. The next thing that's coming up is you have to also provide instructions on how to use the products. So what that looks like, I mean, there's requirements and there's recommendations. So that's kind of we're walking this very gray line right now, because right now we don't have any instructions up, which we're okay, because that's kind of where we're at in the cycle of implementation. But this year we have to figure out how to post those instructions. I'm kind of going very slow because I'm seeing what other districts are doing. Like Hillsborough sent what they're doing. And I just pushed back on ODE a little bit a few weeks ago, because in the requirements, it says that it has to be age appropriate. And so my pushback was, what's age appropriate for a K2 restroom?
Right.
So there's still like a lot of like movement happening there. I think where we're gonna land as a district will be, my proposal is that we have some sort of folder up and the instructions are behind the folder. And the word instruction or something like that is showing. That's what some districts are doing. That would probably get vandalized. That may or may not, you know, it's still gonna be that whole like curiosity too. Like, oh, what's back there? Oh, look what I saw. So we're definitely going slower than faster there. Yeah.
I have a question. So, will the instructions be different in restrooms that are K2?
I think we have some flexibility to do that. The recommendations are that there are also images, not photos, but like images to help for folks that can't read, right? Or that English isn't their first language, or all these things. But that's a recommendation, not a requirement. So probably have some flexibility on that too. The next thing that will also be a huge challenge, it'll just be a big lift, is the education piece. So the health standards, health and sexuality standards are on draft right now. September of 2023, they go to their first read at the ODE board. And part of that, the language in there is K-12 sex education, right? So there's been a lot of, I can tell you, K-5, we're not quite there. K-8, we're not quite there. The high school is doing some of that sexuality education. 5th grade is doing some of the puberty stuff, but not to the extent of what the standards are. So it will be a challenge. Portland Public put out last year, ODE offers what's called open education resources, so that you're not necessarily adopting entire curriculums for hundreds of thousands of dollars that will be out of touch or out of date in a short time. So they have what's called an OER, and Portland Public about 2 years ago pushed out what they were going to do and essentially got lambasted. So all of that's been pulled, and now tricklings of other districts are sharing things. So there's like a 3.5 from Tiger Tualatin that's somewhat appropriate, but it's still very different than what we've ever done here. You have to use medically accurate pictures, images, not photos, medically accurate terms, and labeled, and just it's going to be a lot. So we're very nervous about that. If you go down, thank you. So what I've done so far is I walked through all the buildings. I have an idea of where we need to replace dispensers, where we need to put more. One of the things that we have to do is one of the easiest things is put free in 2 languages. So we've done that. Make sure our custodians and folks have an idea of what we need to do. How do we replace? How do we make sure it's stocked? And then our next steps are the directions and instructions, and then how we're going to provide our education. So I added a couple of resources. If you keep going down, hopefully you guys can link in. That toolkit's 33 pages. I've read it a couple times. It probably has links to about 10,000 pages. There's one pager that kind of just goes over the law and the requirements. But then for the school board and for anybody else that we want to share, we just got an email maybe 2 weeks ago that they're putting out the standards to public comment. So this would be the most appropriate time to say, this is really hard on our schools and our families and our kids and our teachers. So if you go down a little bit more, that link is in there. I know Mr. Carpenter's already done his and given his opinion. I've started mine, and I just want to say a lot more than what I've been able to put in there so far.
will we be able to?
Yeah, and
find
this is linked into the agenda minutes, so you guys are welcome to do that, and that could even be something that I push out on our website, might be a good idea too.
Yeah, I
It's,
think that you
yeah, it's, I mean,
should give
it's
everyone the opportunity
Yeah.
to send comments to the
the appropriate
rulemakers.
place.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where we're at. Next year, this year is science adoption, next year is health adoption. So I'm really hoping that within the next 12 months, there's some clarity on how schools are supposed to do this well, and some support on who the curriculum, I guess. Because right now, I was a classroom teacher for 12 years. This would have been hard. So, any other questions about that? I guess my big takeaways would be to let you guys know that we are in compliance where we have to be, and we're working towards compliance where we need to be.
Thank you.
Okay, and there's more, don't worry. I do have nice things too. It's a little bit lighter. Okay, so this, I'm waiting for this month, but next month I will. So what's gonna happen is, we haven't got our signed grant agreement from ODE yet. And essentially, once they get that draft to us, we have to have board approval on this topic so that we can submit it and have it signed. And I have to put it in the minutes. But so what I thought I'd do is this month kind of give you the big idea, and then next month just give you a review. That gives you guys a couple of weeks if you have any questions on the process or how we got there. And then next week or next month when I need approval, you won't feel like, oh, I'm just now hearing this. And hopefully you're not just now hearing all of this, because we've been working on the integrated plan for 2 years. So this is the longitudinal performance growth targets. And pretty much what we have to do is we have to provide a little bit of background. We have to share what our targets are for the next 5 years out there. It's a requirement to have these in our integrated plan, which combines these 6 programs: our high school success dollars, our SIA or student investment account, continuous improvement planning, CTE, everyday matters, and early indicator intervention systems. We get money from most of these, not all of them, but they're all aligned within our plan. And from our plan, these are our key strategies. Our key strategies are all revolve and reflect around our mission and vision and our idea of relationship, relevance, rigor. And I don't want to read every single word to you, but essentially that we're ensuring that students and staff are known, seen, and valued, that we establish a cohesive student support process K-12 that includes mental, behavioral, and academics, ongoing process and system to encourage and utilize stakeholder feedback, that's that community engagement piece, safe learning environment, mental health and behavioral support, ongoing professional development for our staff to improve instruction, student learning and engagement, building capacity for our students' college and career readiness programs, and then develop and enhance engaging student centers and well-rounded learning experiences. So all of our dollars have to kind of fit one of these categories. And here's the context a little bit more. It's the final stage. We've already done our application. It's already been approved. We've already got our dollars budgeted, all the things that we've done based on the community engagement over the last 2 years. It's in this piece will be in our grant agreement. We'll have to report annually and then performance review every 4 years. And really that report on annually sounds dreamy because actually I'll have to do it quarterly. So I'm not entirely sure. Just on the goal part of maybe annually. And it's important to understand that ODE helped the district build this. Like I didn't just get to make these up. We got 5 years of data. So we got historical data and longitudinal data. We got averages. And then what we had to do was our team had to go meet with local ESD folks and then ODE partners. And then we all sit at this table and we all talk about our goals and our baseline stretch, gap closing, because you have to have multiple different metrics for each of the target areas. And so it's a lot. And it took a lot of people and it's a lot of work. And part of it, the process was to make sure that districts weren't making their goals too small or too large, essentially. So here's what's required. We have to have goals around our 4-year graduation rate, our 5-year completion, 3rd grade reading, 9th grade on track, and regular attenders. And one thing that I've been doing this, and I don't know, maybe you guys already know this, but 5-year completion includes your 4-year grads and that 5th year. It's not just the kids that need 5 years, it's that whole cohort. And attendance. So this is what it looks like. This is an example. This is not Fern data or anything, but what happens is if you look at the visual, that historical data, they give us all this data around all of our kids, our girls, our boys, our focal group kids, our students on disabilities, our students experiencing poverty, students of color, every focal group that they can find and give us that information. And then what we have to do is we have to come up with a baseline target. That's based on like our performance so far. What if we kept going? What's our trend? Then we had to think about our gap closing. So our core, our lowest groups, and how do we get them closer to our baseline kids, like our normal average? And then our stretches, how do we take it farther? So, you know, stretch is dreamy. Baseline is staying the pace, and gap closing is helping get your kids up there. Let's see here. So they have to be realistic and attainable. I talked a little bit about the historic trends and the 5-year averages. And what was interesting about this, and you'll see this in our data that I'm proposing, is that our 5-year averages and where we're saying our first school year is, our first school year is oftentimes lower than our 5-year average because of COVID. So what they're saying is that, yeah, pre-COVID, you guys were doing great, but look at your last 2 years and your trend line went down. So you don't want to assume that you're going to start right here. And then statewide averages. And then I took it a little bit farther, and I also got Lane County averages because I wanted to know. So our first one, this is 4-year graduation. And what you'll see is at the top, the metric goes down the left-hand side. So they're all talking about 4-year graduation. Our target, the top one is baseline, then stretch, then gap closing, which includes all of our focal group students. We're not focusing on just one of our focal group populations. It'll be all of them combined. So, and on the bottom, what you'll see is the 5-year graduation, 5-year average of 4-year graduation is 88.7 for Fern Ridge. The Lane County average is 75.8 and Oregon's is 80.7. So we're significantly above them already. And you'll see that on our next one too, and that's where I had some pushback with ODE. So our goal, even though our average is 88.7, we're starting this year with our goal being 84%. And that's because of where we ended the last couple of years. If you go back pre-COVID, we were in the 90s, but then the last 2 years it was lower 80s. So it just kind of, our average is still high, but where we ended was lower. And then of course, we're still gonna have our stretch for those kids, and we're still gonna have our 4-year gap closing goal. And the idea of the gap closing is that you hope that by 27, 28, your gap closing and your baseline are close. They don't have to be exactly the same, but they're close, so that you're saying all kids are succeeding at the same rate.
Are we taking into consideration in our data for the charter school or just?
No, and that's why this is a little bit slow coming out, because at first they were going to require it, and Gary and I pushed back really hard. And so then they actually took all of that out for the entire state that had district sponsored charters like ours, because we have no say over them. Like, we don't get to pick their employees. We're not there. We don't pick their curriculum, nothing. So.
And they're just a very, very different.
Yeah.
They serve really different.
Yeah, so yeah, at first, yes, it did, but now, no. Okay, so then here's our next one, our 5th-year completion. This is where I had to push back on ODE a little bit, and I'm still waiting to hear more information in regards to this, because when you look at our average, our 5-year average is 92.4. You look at Lane County, you look at Oregon, and if you look at how much I had us going up by each year, it's 0.25%. Because once you're over 95, they don't even register it anymore. So if you'll see, I guess it's at that 96. When I submit these to the state, anything over 95 changes to this weird color, and they're like, yep, we're not even going to calculate schools that get over 95. And when I first met with them, I was just like, how do you expect a district that's already being super successful in this area? Where are we supposed to go? And they said, well, it's different for districts that are performing in the top 10% of the state. And she was able to tell me that. I was like, okay, so if we're performing already at the top 10% of the state, what does that look like for us? And that's why this was the one that we had to kind of go back and forth on, but this is where we did land with them and they were okay with it. So that's that one. We're significantly higher. This is definitely going to be one of our focus areas. This is regular attendance, chronic absenteeism, and they calculate this by whether or not your students are attending 90% of the time or more. And this is K-12. This is one area that we're not higher than Lane County or Oregon averages, and I have my own thinking around that. As COVID was coming to a close, how to do attendance was really gray. You could have one communication point, you could have multiple. It was kind of whatever the district required and how they wanted to track that. We went back to tracking it the way that we always have been. And a lot of districts took advantage of keeping it. No, we had one communication, we sent an email and they tracked that as 100% attendance. So that's mine. I haven't crunched all of the numbers, but I know that during COVID and those last 2 years, ours was significantly worse.
But it was more true.
Exactly, more accurate, yes.
And transparent.
Yes, and I shared that with ODE as well. But even so, we're back, right? And so this is our focus area, and we'll be focusing K-12. There will be a lot of push to up our attendance rates. Third grade ELA, same thing. We're higher than Lane County for our 5-year average, and we're higher than the state for our 5-year average. We're starting significantly lower because of trend lines and these last 2 years kind of put us, because 3 or 4 years ago, we were at 65%, but the last 2 years, just because of our numbers and because of our students participating, that's the other piece that doesn't really come into play and it's hard to tease out is your participation rate. So if you have a lot of kids opting out, it could be a pro or a con for you. So that's something that always will have to be considered here. 9th grade on track is kind of our other focus area, just to really try to figure out why we're so not super different than Lane County or Oregon, but we are lower, and in the other areas we are not. So kind of going backwards and thinking, what do we need to do for those kids and how to get them where they need to be and how to kind of plan and then work backwards on that too. Like what could we be doing in 8th grade? What could we be doing sooner in 9th grade? This one's a tricky one just because the other piece that you have to reflect on is not how important it is, but when you're looking at your graduation rates and your 5-year completion rates, it's hard to know what kind of a predictor this is.
Yeah.
But we also have a lot of different things at the high school to track these kids. They have monthly meetings, they have grade checks, they have counselor check-ins, they have a lot of different pieces in play. So they're getting the support that they need if they get off track. And that's all in a nutshell. I guess what I would ask for you guys, if you have questions or comments right now, great. If you don't, if you have something that come up just over the next few weeks, I can probably be more articulate.
All right, thank you.
Is that Excel the right way? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, superintendent's report.
I'll have a couple things since then Ms. Marshall is going to be presenting a lot.
Sorry.
Just a reminder, there's school registration starts tomorrow. Elementary schools and middle school tomorrow.
Yep.
And then the high school will be Wednesday and Thursday. And then again, just a reminder for the board at our retreat, you talked about Parent Square. That should be all set up for you now and folks that want it. So if you need assistance with that, reach out to me and or Becky, and then when the district-wide posts go out across Parent Square, y'all can get those. That's all I have.
That it?
Yep.
Discussion items, English language learners report, information for the board. Ms. Johnson?
So this is a report that we have to share with you every couple of years. We actually just got notified from ODE that we're being audited again in Title this year. It just feels like we just did it, but I was looking at the date, and it was actually like 4 years ago, so time has flown since the last time we got audited. Because it doesn't seem like we just really just did it. So this is, when you look at this report, it is from the a statewide perspective. So it's not local to our district. It deals with 100,000 ELL students, and their progress, lack of progress, where they're struggling. It's a really interesting report. There's a really quick, like a 3-page executive summary at the very beginning. So if you even just want to read just that little bit, it would be great. Yeah, it's just it. I mean, it's some of these stuff that we probably, if you are knowledgeably, yes, right? Attendance needs to be higher. It's higher in the elementary grades than it is in the secondary grades for our ELL kids. ELL kids are more likely to graduate with a modified diploma. Students who are ELL in high school are less likely to go to college. It's not really, it's depressing actually.
Are there any surprises in it?
No, English language learners are overrepresented in special education, underrepresented in TAG. Kinds of things that we've been trying to fight against and work against and improve are still here. Younger English language learners are more likely to be on track, and that seems to be a theme throughout this report. So the earlier we can identify them, if they come earlier, then we can help and but that's like anybody learning a language, right? It's
Right.
intervening younger. And of course, very few current English language learners meet state standards. We have, and I would say that our data is probably more positive than that, because we do have a few that are doing pretty well. But again, the numbers in this district are so small, and we're not anywhere near statistically significant.
Right.
And if you look at the state report card for the district, I don't even think it's
We have
listed.
less than 20 kids district-wide that are
Yeah.
ELD. And again, this presentation is just kind of a box check. We'll share with the board. If you go on the left-hand side of our webpage under district and state reports, you click that, that's this page that has all these wide range of things. Michelle scrolled down to the ELD, you can see I just recently updated, like Olivia said, this report that she's referring to under their ELL reports. The one that's translated in Spanish is the last one. And they haven't translated it yet. As soon as they do, I'll update that translated.
And if you're curious about what we do in the ELD program, the actual ELD plan, ELL plan is on the website as well. And we did update that this last year. So, it's pretty up to date. Yeah,
So, there's about 20 students in our district,
I would say more like 15,
more like 15.
yeah,
There's less than 20.
less than 20. And then you've got the students who are actively receiving ELL services, and then the students who are in the monitoring phase, so they've progressed out of ELL, and then we're still keeping an eye on them.
So I know it's very, very low, but what is that percentage?
20 kids out of 1,400 to 1.2%. Quick math. I don't know.
And then for the state?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the percentage across the state. It's definitely greater than that.
Yeah, I think.
Out the, what they mentioned,
100,000 students,
yeah,
and how many students in the state?
I would not.
Yeah,
Really,
I'm not
yeah. Yeah, I don't have the percentage.
All right, thank you. Next up is Fern Middle School curriculum adoption.
Yep, so 2 forms, we got approved on 2 classes, the first one being this middle school orienteering class. So all the information submitted there, hopefully you've had a chance to review it, seems pretty straightforward. One of our new teachers, Mr. Davis, who is here tonight. Say hi, Mr. Davis. Will be teaching this class. If you recall, anytime we're teaching entirely new subject that we've never taught before. It comes to the board via this process.
All right, we do have to have board action on this.
Well, I move that we approve this new class at the middle school, and I really wish that I was at, this has been offered when I was in middle school.
What is it?
Compasses, like using a compass, orienteering.
Orienteering, but with orienteering comes shelter building, comes fire starting, it comes knowing your plants in the Oregon forest. It's learning to stay put in your section when you're lost in, not move, topographical map reading, and belly draw a total map of our school area.
Oh,
Kids
cool.
will do that, just a lot. It takes 17 weeks to get done for the whole class.
Right. So we have a
There are a
motion.
lot of challenges where they all work in the book together. You get a choice to be able to work with friends, get to pick, you get to learn, respect each other, and the way they will learn, they will respect you. Pretty old school here. Sorry.
He's a wrestling referee.
No, no wrestling. All right, so we do have a motion to accept the class, orienteering class in this school. A second, we need a second.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Yeah, thank you. All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Next is the Elmira High School curriculum adoption.
Before I turn it over to see if anybody else wants to comment on it, typically you guys should have gotten this in the spring. We dropped the ball, so you're getting it now. Theater, historically, has just been an after-school club. But when it's an after-school club, it prohibits kids from that want to participate. If I play volleyball, I really couldn't do theater. Cross country or play football. If I have transportation issues, my only ride home was the school bus, etc. Getting within the school day solves those issues. We have a teacher that's interested, has worked on development it's going to be a 1 semester, 1-time course. Culmination will be a play at the end of the semester. And we have never had theater within the master schedule. Hence it's coming to that.
And a lot of kids have signed up for it, so. In the 20s, mid-20s.
Hey, would you say that last part, please?
A lot of kids have signed up to take it, so it's in the mid. We've had some registration.
And will we be able to get feedback on how it went?
Oh, we should do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
At the high school, one of the things, maybe you can confirm, said that they still do that, but when I was there, and I know it carried forward at least a little bit when Rick was there, I asked all teachers to do course feedback summaries at the end of the term. So I want every teacher to hear from every student that thought that they were fantastic or thought they were an idiot from the kids. And I never asked what it was, but all teachers should get feedback. Because anytime we do a new course like this, the principal will want to see this information, see if we want to do it again next year.
And then, so when the teachers get the feedback, which I absolutely love, does it go any further than that in the past?
I mean, if there was some issue in a course, that the kid's saying, well, this teacher's fantastic, and it comes to me, we might recognize them, or there's an issue that it's fallen up that way. Just general course evaluations, we just left that up to the teachers. They got the information from kids. Sometimes when I would meet with teachers at the end of the year and they wanted to bring it up, hey, here was something, some criticism my kids said in this course, we might talk about it. But in general, it's information to the teachers.
Okay.
And we could actually go to the production to see, maybe some good feedback.
Yeah.
That'd be good feedback, we could see how the footage that they produced. Yeah, there you go. So this does require board action also.
I move that we approve the additional class of theater production.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. So we do have a few policy updates, and this is a first reading, so this is opportunity for the next month to take a look at those, and I would assume that most of them are probably legislative changes. There's a ton that are gonna be coming down the line, it sounds like, after the conference.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a bunch of legislative changes, some minor, I would assume, but
These were 4 of the simpler ones. So, as you know, you got first reading, folks hadn't had a chance to read this. If you had any questions now, certainly share them so I can research. But yeah, more complex ones in the months to come.
all right. Next up is board goals for 23-24, something we did talk about at the workshop or work session, I should say. I have a whole lot to say about those. We need to.
Yeah, a couple of things I guess I'd share is, I know Lisa was asking today, there isn't no deadline. We have to have goals by. There isn't even a board policy that says you have to have goals. It is best practice, as we talked about in the retreat. My only encouragement would be to either have goals that really focus on the board and that you want to charge me with, rather than having goals that are broad out to the students. You saw, the staff in the buildings, for example, the 5 areas that Michelle talked about, but we're really going to be pushing on improving 9th grade on track and attendance, 2 ones where we're at or below the state average. That's what we want. The middle school and high school focusing on how can we get more of our 9th graders on track at their end of their 9th grade year, focusing on things around attendance. How can we improve our school attendance, K-12, et cetera. We're obviously doing very well in 3rd grade reading, 4th and 5th grade, or 4th and 5-year graduation rates. But even in those areas, we're going to have plans and strategies to continue to grow those. So again, that would be my main recommendation. Obviously, they're your goals. You can do what you like. I would probably also share in searching today, because before I responded to Lisa about, I wanted to make sure there wasn't some board policy that I didn't know about that requires us to have board goals. There is a board policy that's titled is board goals, BA, and it kind of lists what the general goals of the board are. I just throw that out there because if you wanted to do something simple, it could just be about referring. I think there's 5 of them.
Yeah. There are.
So anyway, that's
yeah, and I'd be willing to, have the board take a look at those the next month, and we can come back and have it on the agenda again. And I would be more than just to stick with what we have for those goals that are in the policy. I think they're specific enough on what we were really trying to accomplish as a board. But we can talk about it.
So, sorry. I can't apparently think and talk at the same time. I think that because we have 2 new board members, we might consider just keeping the board goals that you have recommended, but also working on bringing their ideas in and maybe revising at our next board retreat in the next summer. We could really focus on whether we want to change.
Well, in the perfect world, we're really developing these goals in the spring, late summer. They're set.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But timeline is up to you. I do, the last couple of years, we've had the same ones. I do like the one goal around, because it's easily achievable, we can track it and know how we're doing, that we had last year, which was pursue engagement in the school board specific professional development throughout the school year. So like those of you who went to the conference, that's something that we're doing. In one of my weekly updates each month, I pick some topic, PD for board members to send you greater information on. It's just something easy for me to engage in, provide information to you, motivate you to, attend a course, do an OSBA course, attend a conference, etc. So as a standalone, I do like that a little bit.
And we could even do maybe even a work session, in the spring.
Right,
and-
in
and
February
to
or
develop those
March,
goals
right,
for
yeah.
next year,
Yeah.
a little more in depth if we want to. Something to keep in mind.
Okay, so I have a question then. So if we're going to keep these, then has there been any measurement on them? And are we satisfied with what the district is doing with these?
With the 3 that we had last year,
Yes.
yeah, prior to, like, let me go back. I shared some examples too early on, 5-6 years ago, were goals that were more measurable. Our goals last year, I don't know that they're measurable, right? The first one is, we could clearly identify, last year, what did Gary do to help with this? Well, my little piece of this was, again, once a month, send the board, pick a topic, send the board information. Individual board members attended conferences, did PDs on their own. We could see at the end of the year what folks have done. So if the goal was to pursue engagement, yes, I think we could identify many ways that we did that. The second one, support engagement with community in a variety of ways to elicit feedback. Sure, I can list out, the 10, 12, 14 things that we've done. We haven't done that. And then the third one, support building staff through our policies and decision-making. It's kind of same thing. We could create a document like we used to do, that kind of tracks our strategies and ways that where the board is trying to achieve that. But again, in the past, they were really things that were happening at the building level. They were things that you were charging principals to do, or classrooms, things that were occurring throughout the district. They weren't really things the board was doing. And that's what becomes hard. Like even this support engagement with the community in a variety of ways to elicit feedback. Mostly that would be work from Michelle, myself, building principals. Not that there's some things that you couldn't do, right? Or remember Lisa could have a coffee every third Tuesday at the coffee house, invite people to come down and ask questions. And elicit feedback from the community. So there is things that board could do.
Isn't that the point of board goals, was you guys set goals and then monitor your success in it? That's why you set goals.
So, the ODE, the focus of ODE, so Michelle, correct me if I'm misrepresenting this. The ODE has, for lack of a better word, imposed on districts a pretty prescribed pretty prescribed goal setting methodology.
Yes, those 5 goals we have to have. Every school district in the state of Oregon has to create goals around those 5 metrics.
And
that's just one part of our thing.
And when we had the goals that you presented, every month you presented, here's what we've done, blah, blah, blah. This was not in place. Whereas we're gonna need to be hearing reports, regular updates on where we're on these goals. And so I am concerned that there are going to be so many goals that no one is going to be able to keep track of them. So that's why I have recommended that we just go with the goals as we've written them, or we've agreed last year's, and work with you and Michelle and the community maybe and staff to, to set maybe 3 goals for the board, that are measurable. But at the board level, you know, but we can't do that between now and next meeting. We have to go through a pretty long process and have work sessions and get input from various constituencies, I guess. Oh,
So how would the
I'm-
proposed
and-
plan to, make that happen? I guess,
so I'm trying to get that out. So please give me an opportunity to do that. I'm afraid that I can't continue because I have so much, I can't continue because
Yeah.
I'm not finding words.
That's fine. So, I mean, I think we can use the goals that we had last year and, between now and the spring, you know, make sure that we're.
They're board goals, it's up to you guys.
that we're
So
doing
I-
this and then in the spring have a work session and to come up with us, with the different goals and how we want to implement those and measure them for the next school year. And go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So you're right on about 3 goals. We really just 3 goals, that's it. And I actually don't feel comfortable. I mean, I feel comfortable coming in here, being brand new and learning. But if these are school board goals, I really want to get in the meat of, these are our goals that we have now. Let's find out how it was measured, how it is doing, and then we can decide if we want to move on with those, or as a school board, how do we want to present goals for the community, for the district?
Well, for the board.
The board makes
Board
the
goals.
goals.
The
district.
board
We don't make the goals for this, we
only
make it for the board.
makes goals
These are board goals.
for ourselves.
The integrated
And
plan
then
is
the superintendent,
right. So the integrated plan that they're talking about, those are goals set by.
No, I'm not talking about that.
It might be
The
helpful.
district goals.
It might be helpful, you know, as a starting point to look at, if you go to the district website, right, under school board. maybe- Sorry, I threw a wrench into
Yeah.
Miss Smith.
he owes you coffee tomorrow morning.
School board. Yep. And I know it's policy BA,
But, yeah,
but if you just search goals,
or you just click on the AB over there, it says BA, it's right in that, on the left side, where it says board governance.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Well, my
AB.
keyboard wasn't turned
Oh,
on.
so it's just,
yeah, there you go. So BA, board goals. If you click on that one, it lists out, and again, stuff you need to decide tonight, but has a little summary of what primary responsibilities are of school boards. This is this isn't a Fern Ridge specific thing, right? This is OSBA language around the state on what their goals should be. Again, I don't know that those are easily measurable. But it does give you areas to focus on and things that we can, that you can discuss and look into.
Is this policies or goals?
policy, this is a policy
This is a
on board
policy
goals.
called board goals.
This is
Okay.
one that we've had. We've chosen to, obviously, we do quite a bit of those things as far as dictating policy. And, but we've chosen in the past to also have other goals.
I'm still gonna stand with what I'm saying.
Okay,
I do think that the school board is there for the community, for the students, number one. But I think that the goals that we do make will be for our Fern Ridge School District. That's what I believe in that.
So I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Yeah, I'm not
Exactly.
sure that I think that we're just,
I mean,
On two different pages?
no, I think that we're just using different language to say the same thing.
I just know that we're supposed to do what is right for number one, the kids.
right, and we do that by policy, and we do that by,
Go ahead.
hiring the superintendent and approving the budget. Those are the things that we do to help the kids. That's our, that's what we do as a board. That's our dictate as a board, those three things. And so that's how we, I mean, that's not the only way, but that is through policy.
Right.
Then by hiring the superintendent, he sets the goals for the district and, so, and then what they were talking about, the integrated plan is more in depth, that from ODE, that talks more in depth, they have to report. And those are the reports we're gonna get on the student successes through the integrated plan. So board goals are for the board and goals for ourselves that we wanna make as a board.
For who?
For the board, for us.
Right, and we're making these goals. You know, we're doing it for us, for the school board, right? We're making the school board goal, but when we're making these goals, who do we have in mind? Do we have the students in mind, the community in mind? Do we have Christopher Columbus in mind?
We always have the students at the top of our list.
This
I
is what I'm
mean,
saying.
But we're not making goals for the district, we are, I guess, in general, yes, we are. Everything that we do, I guess, is for the students. So you're right.
You control the district.
We control the three
Your
things.
goals are the districts.
Excuse me, first of all, we're allowing the public to make comment right now, which we don't have to. So there's a public comment section if you have.
As soon as someone said something, that is your response, and you should be.
So we're gonna, listen, this is not gonna happen. If you have public comment, we have in the past allowed it, and we've had multiple times tonight. And I think, you know, in the past, we've allowed that, it's been usually okay. And so, excuse me? So, yeah, if you have a comment and you wanna make comments, then sign up for public comment, and there's a way to do that. And I'm not that I'm saying.
Do me a favor, we don't have to go super quickly. And you will see what you're doing right now is going against it. All she's asking is, can we monitor that we're meeting?
I'm trying to figure out exactly what she's trying to say. That's what my questioning is about. So I'm trying to figure out what that, so we can get on the same page. That's my goal, is that we all are on the same page. If it doesn't happen this meeting, that's fine. We can talk about it in another meeting. We can do a special work session. That's what I'm suggesting. So that that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not sure exactly what she's trying to do. Thank you for pointing that out. That's what I'm attempting to do. I appreciate that. So, I think we're probably saying the same thing. We are gonna create goals for the board, which then will benefit the entire district.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Anything else?
Get a work session scheduled? Do we want to kind of not promote board goals right now? Or are we kind of leaving this?
I think we can, what would the board like to do?
I think a work session, well, happening, so we all can be, discuss in more detail and come through a resolution.
I think that'd be great. So, in the past, we haven't had a lot of work sessions. There's multiple ways of doing it. We could do it, an hour prior to the board meeting, if that works for people. I'm not sure what people's schedules are like. So we could start at 5 o'clock, maybe, if that's something that will work for everybody. How's that
That's a good
sound?
start.
We want
I mean, we can make that happen in September, so it can be relatively, as long as that works for people's schedules, you know, or 5, in between now and September too, I can probably gather some information for you to share.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
So what I'd like to do is not wait until September to talk about this. I'd like to be able to get into it, think about it.
Lisa,
Yes.
I need time to think about it. And so I don't feel like I'm prepared to have that discussion tonight.
Oh, no, not tonight. We're gonna create a work session to have this. Now we're figuring out.
Yes, and I'm not available until September, because I'm traveling for the rest of the month.
So when in September are you available?
Can we do it on the board meeting night? You want me for that one? Okay,
Oh, you won't be here.
so when, is there a time prior to the meeting then?
Andrew, how about you?
So why don't we, well, okay, I'm back on,
I
the,
have surgery and next week my kids are doing, both boys are doing their wisdom surgery.
oh,
So, which one? And
oh, fine for you.
the Friday of that week, I'm doing surgery on my shoulder, so. We need to
So at least,
coordinate probably middle of September,
what's the,
What's the date?
when,
my surgery.
So would like, is
The fourth
the,
is a holiday, so the next week is running into the 11th, so that's when you're out.
no,
I like to the 16th.
Okay.
do we
So,
want to keep it on a Monday night?
probably safe.
September 11th, does that work for everybody?
I can do the 11th.
looks like it. I'm back after Labor Day, so.
Okay, what time do we want to set it for on the 11th, the work session? And then 6 o'clock, is that fine? All right, 6 o'clock on the 11th, we'll have a work session with our,
And this will be the only topic on the agenda?
Yeah,
yeah,
as of right now.
Should be the only topic.
No, I
to
think it
focus
should
on.
be the only topic, so that we can just focus on that.
And what I
all right. School board meeting recordings.
We brought this up during the retreats, and because there have been some issues around the state, since then, I think what we've kind of agreed on our end, as long as the board is in support of it, we're going to continue to record, continue to post the recording on the district website through the school year. We'll reevaluate in the spring. So it doesn't need to be any board action, as long as you're okay with that. Okay.
Sounds good.
Fine with me.
All right, OSBA summer conference report. So 3 of us went to the conference and I thought it was great. I ended up taking I had the same presenter. Most of the classes are put on by OSBA staff at the summer conference, which is different than in the one in the fall. So I ended up having Vince Adams, who is one of the board, he's a school board trainer for basically OSBA. I had him for every session, which was okay because he was wonderful. I talked about, I went to the one on for board chairs and running meetings and parliamentary procedure, community, what was the last one called that we went to? That's community outreach, basically is what it was. And they were great. I thought there was good input. I don't think that we're doing anything really that much different than from around the state, from what people, the comments that were made during the class and the questions that were asked, and sitting with people at lunch. We're facing some of the similar issues that they are all over the state. I sat with people from NISA and Glide and Roseburg and Portland schools, area schools, and the things that we talked about were very similar. The things that they talked about are similar to what we're, so as far as staffing and those type of things.
Yeah, the staffing was a really hot topic. And no one had any solutions.
Lisa, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So this is my first year going. I had no idea what to expect, think of, or anything, but it was an absolutely wonderful time. It was go, go, go the whole time, but I learned so much. It was unbelievable. Informative, very, very informative. Definitely I'll be going in the fall. What I wanted to do when I went there is, because I really don't know anybody, except for who I just talked to on the phone, I just wanted to get to meet people, do face-to-face, and just talk to them. And so couple things I walked away with. Okay, so I'll do this one first. So the different classes I went to was the school board roles and responsibilities, the superintendent and the board relationships, they're very, very clear about that. And I agree with so much of it, but what really they're saying is kindness, respect, trust. They just over and over and over about that. And I think those are very important, okay? Policies, there's 200 million policies, okay? To communicate, and that, when they're talking about communicate, they're saying communicate not just to us, but to the staff, to the community, to the kids, that we should be in, communicate all the time to everybody, okay? And always, not only under policies, but every class I went to, whether it was a general, which was a round table, which was a class, everything was about the best interest of the students. Boom, that was really it. Yes, there's this, yes, there's that, but the best interest for the students. And hearing this, because I didn't know what I was going to be getting into, but when I got there, when I was listening to everything, in my heart, I was saying, yes, 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 this is what we want, this is what we want to do, this is what me personally would like to do. Okay, so there's also public meetings, which I really didn't get to. Legislator, not big at all, but I'm going to get into it. Okay, communication heroes. And it was, I bottom lined it, and it really was community, best for the students. One thing is, and I've been very clear about this whole time, is I am not a political person. I don't think politics should be in the schools. And what I did find out, and they said, welcome to politics. And I was like, But here's the thing, I raised my hand, I'm a hand raiser, okay? So I raised my hand and I said, wait a minute, politics isn't supposed to be in the schools. Well, I learned, okay? Politics is heavy in the school district. And I'm thinking, and if I'm wrong, please let me know, because I'm learning here. But a lot of it has to do with funding, okay? And my thought on that is we can still get funding from different entities, but it doesn't mean that we have to push their ideologies, if that makes sense to you. But what it is clear through OSBA is that it should be, actually it's not even should be, there will be no politics in the schools, staff versus students. The students have tons and tons of rights. The staff, everybody down the line, okay, has no right for their ideologies, their political views, or anything like that. This is, I've said this over and over, this is education. That's it.
All right.
So I attended a couple of things that I had always not attended before because I wasn't that interested, but I actually took away a few things. The first one was school law for board members, and pardon me. In one of the things that came up was that the board member oath of office includes upholding the laws of the nation and the state. And that made me start thinking about different things that, so for example, the Menstrual Dignity Act. We don't, at the local level, we do not have a choice in that. We may have some choices about how to implement, but we don't have any choice about about just not doing it. And then other things that I feel like at the school administrator and teacher and staff level, that there have been accusations about not about the way that parents are being kept from their children, and they also have that legal responsibility, and custody disputes are, there is a ruling from a judge that is communicated to the district and the schools, and we have to follow that. We can't just pick and choose based on who we like better or what the parent is telling us. And I don't think that that's always clear in some cases. And charter schools, apparently there's a lot coming down the line in terms of charter school rules. And one of the things that was brought up was how are they going to be approaching the integrated plan and the graduation requirements, et cetera. So I want to make sure that I keep that in mind for when we start the process of going through the Westland Tech renewal. On January 1st, there will be mandatory board training on public meetings law. So that's another requirement that will be added to our plates. I went to a session on the House Bill 3198 early literacy success, and I was really interested to hear that although they had the section on the agenda, they hadn't ODE has not come down with very many rules or interpretation of the law. So we're still waiting for that. And then, so the last session I went to was the board's role in strategic planning. And this is where I think that Lisa, because she went to another session with Steve Kelly earlier, and I don't think that we disagree. I think that we're just saying it differently. And now that we've set a work session, I think that we'll be able to get that hashed out.
Sure.
I think that's it.
Great.
So the next one will be, I think it's second weekend in November.
Yeah.
So we won't be not right now, but in a few weeks, we'll start giving you that information and seeing who's going. Definitely not required to go, but encouraged to go. I'll attend with you to this one. It's in Portland. We'll start getting signed up and all that stuff in the coming weeks.
All right. Moving on, next up is personnel. It doesn't look like we have any licensed staff at this time. We do have, there's quite a list of non-licensed new hires, transfers, resignations, other coaches, that kind of thing. We don't have to take action on that. That's just for information. Quite a few people that are being hired. And moving on, upcoming events. There's some listed there. We can go over those. We do have the new teacher academy begins on the 23rd that we've been doing the last few years. And then there's all staff in service on the 28th. So any of you that can make that in the morning at the cafeteria at the high school, I think he would just probably introduce us as board members there, and that can be there I'm going to try to be there.
What time is it?
You can start to.
Doors open-ish, 7:45-ish till 8:15, kind of breakfast time, 8:15 will start. Probably within the first few minutes, so after 8:15, you know, for board members that are there, I'll introduce you.
All right,
Once again, I will not be able to be there in person, but I would like it if you would just
Hold up a picture.
oh, no. No, no,
Sounds about exciting.
just tell them, welcome back, and I really appreciate their, all their service.
Oh,
And then we got first day of school the 5th and kindergarten, other things that are, first day is on the 11th. Other things that are happening, there's cross country, there's volleyball, there's football and boys and girls soccer that are also starting, and the jamboree on Friday, I know at Junction City for football. And there was a purple and gold night last Friday that I went to. The weather was great, the smoke cleared out, so it was really nice and it was cool, and it was kind of hard to tell who was who because they didn't have numbers on the uniforms, and I had parents sitting next to me that weren't sure which their kid was, so, but most of the time. So it was nice. There's quite a few people that showed up for that. Any later closing items?
one thing I forgot to mention during my report, I sent it to you via email, the board operating agreement. I made that edit. Are we good to go with those items on there? Okay, so, we don't need to go through it all. But as we talked about, first item on there, children's interests come first. The board will represent the needs and interests of all children in our district. So this will get updated and put on our website. I might add that this is our 23-24 version at the top, but okay, that'll be it. That's all I got.
Any other late items or closing comments? If there's no objection, we will adjourn. Thank you all for being here.
So. Yeah, the brain